Okay, so here we're going to be looking at my turn count speedrun world record for now, until Safer manages to take it back. And yeah, this is a Deep Dwarf fighter, and I'll be joined by Flugkiller to co-commentate this run.
Hi,
And
hi.
yeah, and so yeah, let's hope those who watch enjoyed this. So yeah, first we can see that I quickly went down to the second level and found the first artifact item of the run. It'll be a +0 helmet that I'll manage to keep on for the rest of the game. Currently, the strategy is pretty simple, just trying to dive down to D4 as quickly as possible and find Okawaru in the temple, which can be from D4 to D7. Currently, I've been doing quite a few runs at this point, so the early game is pretty much automatic. Just trying to explore as quickly as possible while going up and down stairs to explore faster and go pick up consumables along the way. Yeah, I skip gold because that just wastes turns. And yeah, I'm just, as you can see, going up and then downstairs and going next to consumables to pick them up. And now I
Uh, could
find, huh? Yeah, continue.
could you explain? Could you explain why we are picking Okawaru over any other god?
Yeah, so we could see that I picked up a few boomerangs right back there, and it is pretty much the main strategy of this run that is focusing on throwing items as the main source of damage. Well, finding, of course, Akawaru can also provide weapons and armor, which can be very useful. But this on at this point we are trying to get the ranged combat work for us, because when you use the heroism of Okaru, it gives you +5 to the stats, to all combat stats, and that using that for ranged combat increases the base damage of all the items you throw. So it's very useful. And of course, you can use finesse to decrease the damage you take during combat, which also works for Deep Dwarf, compared to, let's say, Makleb, which heals the damage you take instead.
I see you entered the sewer. Uh, I assume you think it's turn count efficient to enter sewers and portal branches.
Um, so I thought so, yes. Uh, at this point, it's my thoughts may have already been changed after seeing how Safer does his attempts, but it's a quick and direct trip to get a nice amount of consumables. Oh, and there was just an interesting moment in the run where I used the blink scroll. We can enjoy that, knowing that it's the only blink scroll I'll be able to use. Would have been nice to get some more, but that was the only one. And yeah, so going to the sewers, yeah, gives some consumables that can be useful in getting through the early game, and also going to Zot, because you want to try to steal the orb instead of going to fight them. And there we could also see just now that after trying out the scrolls that I got from the sewer, I went back up to D4 to use a magic mapping scroll, because because if I wouldn't have used it there, I would have just skipped it and skipped a chance to find the sewer quickly. And instead of, I would just continue diving down deeper. So it was pretty lucky for this specific run that I chose to go back up to read the scroll that I had identified.
I see you found the Scarf of Harm. Are you gonna use it?
Oh yeah, I think I may have already put it on, but if I didn't, then yeah, it was the first cloak item I found, and it turned out to be pretty useful in this run. Well, as Lisi or Energetic Octo says, it is a good item, and with ranged combat, especially that, if the enemies can get to you fast enough, they don't even hit you, so the extra damage you take doesn't matter. and so it essentially just saves turns, and it might even save damage taken because you kill enemies faster. So yeah, now a quick fight with Maggie. I use some Atropod darts to dispatch her, and yeah, so we already can see some benefits of Okawara, that using darts, since they need both throwing and stealth, Okawara boosts both of them, so they can become pretty useful, especially with the Datura darts, which I sadly don't get to use in this run. And now we have a bit of a time loss in the ossuary, because I managed to go to the very last possible room which contains the entrance into the loot chamber by going around in the counterclockwise direction. And yeah, so currently, after we managed to get Okawara, now the main point is to get into, well, we would like to get some loot by getting Piety quickly, but the main point now is to just find Lair as fast as possible and start doing the rune branches.
Are there any checkpoints that you need to, well, not checkpoints, but are there any things that you feel like you need to find before starting to do layer branches? So that, like, in case you don't find them, you would reset in to save time.
Yeah, let me think about that. Well, essentially, most runs end up resetting or dying before entering lair or entering the lair branches. So in that case, the items you find that brought you into the lair branches are good enough most of the time. Well, essentially, Safer had given me some advice earlier, in that as soon as you feel that you can enter into lair, you're strong enough to do that, you should do that, because anything else wastes time. So just getting a well enchanted armor or a nice weapon probably would be good enough. And after that, the main power, it tends to become throwing. If you manage to find some boomerangs or javelins, as we just did. Yeah, especially for enemies like hydras, which just pretty much can't be meleeed with using axes. You have to use throwing instead, or some other items, but throwing is the most accessible option.
For any people that are watching this that haven't seen this replay version before, this is the DCSS replay that our man himself here, Sente, has developed. It isn't perfect, but sometimes you've seen these red shit stars, or whatever they're called. That's when he's throwing items. So it's not highlighting the screen isn't. I assume it's not easy to replicate it as it looks in game.
Right? Yeah. It's essentially, it is the targeting reticule, which are purple stars. It is possible to see that in the bottom right corner, which is the ASCII view. And yeah, so the purple stars are wretched stars when displayed as monsters. So I could have done a special case, but I chose to focus on other things while developing it. And yeah, now I managed to go all the way around here. I had identified most of my potions at this point. No, I don't think so. But there was a chance that I could have gotten a flight potion by blind quaffing potions, but I chose to not do so and instead go around the way taking some damage here. And now when I entered here and see 3 more Orc Knights with glaives or polearms, I saw that it would be a terrible idea to continue, and I chose to read an immolation scroll and throw some poison darts, which results in the explosions that we can see now due to the changes to the inner flame way of working, where they have a chance of spawning fire clouds each time they take damage, which poison counts for. So yeah, so I managed to clear out that, and it gave me 2 stars for killing 3 Orc Knights. So I went from 2 stars to 4 stars instantly with Okavar, which is pretty nice.
You do actually pick up the gold there, whereas you didn't before in the
Yeah,
Ossuary, for example.
yeah, so essentially, I thought that since it's so close together, I cannot pick it up. And there I managed to actually find the first good item of the run. Well, if we exclude the Scarf of Harm, which I also will stick with for the rest of the game, which is a int +2 fly +11 crystal plate armor. So that sets me up to at least take less damage. Now
we're definitely ready to go to Lair, right?
Oh yeah, yep. Yeah. So all this time I've of course been hoping to find, to get a better axe, or that Okavar would give me one. It's not been successful so far, and it turns out it won't be successful at all. And yeah, so now I'm just hoping that I can find Lair as quickly as possible. There is still some hesitation in my choosing to go for consumables or some exploration. I sometimes double back a few turns, and yeah. So
what is your thought process when you decide to pick up a consumable or not? Is it just instinct, or do you have some sort of checklist in mind?
Well, okay, so essentially, what I think about is that whether I would, one hard battle right here. So yeah, we have a Hornet which can slow and paralyze you, and a Rolka which can banish you. So that can be pretty bad, obviously, in combination. So I chose to throw an Arthropod Dart at Rolka, which blinded her, and so that I could deal with the Hornet by closing the door, and so she wouldn't bother me. Then I killed the Hornet, went around and threw another Arthropod Dart so I can run away. And yeah, just take care of that situation. So concerning the consumables, I would, I try to focus on exploration mainly, and so essentially I would, but so I don't skip consumables that I see. So I pretty much pick up every single one that I see at this point, and I try to explore while picking them up, and essentially I see if there are stairs close by that I could go there instead. So, but I just see if I could try. I see if I could get back to them along the way after exploring some stairs, essentially. But yeah, I just tried to pick up as many as possible because they might be useful. And here,
yeah. So for example, okay, sorry.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
And here we have the first hider of the run, which is the 6-headed one, so that's pretty bad. And I also don't even have any throwing trained at this point, so I'm just, and I of course couldn't melee it, so I have to throw boomerangs at 5 throwing due to heroism only. But they managed to kill the Hydra anyway because I can tank it due to my 32 AC. And yeah, so that's the first Hydra down back in layer 1. And yeah, you can say what you've been saying.
Yeah, right, about the exploration and picking up consumables. So let's say you have a downstairs that you haven't gone down through, and it's right there, and then you see a potion that's just on the edge of the screen. Would you go up and pick the potion, or would you just go downstairs?
Yeah, so yeah, it feels like a bit of a it feels slightly random that I might do both of them. Depending on the way I feel, I might do either them in either order. But essentially, if it was an upstairs, I would definitely go to the upstairs first because I know that I won't be sticking around in the upstairs level because I need to go down. So I would just go up, see if there's any consumables around, and then go back down. If I were to go, if it was a downstairs that I haven't been to a new level before, then if you go down, there might be yeah, you might be tempted to continue going down because there would be another stairs down. So essentially, I might then go first to the consumables, explore just a little bit more of the current level, and then go back down. If that makes sense. And yeah, so now we get into the next temporary portal, which manages to be extremely useful to us, which gives us a +3 slaying +4 gloves, which they are almost like the gloves of war. And yeah, so and I also managed to skip 2 of the enemies in the first room by just quickly going over. Now we pick up another will ++ slay +3 ring, which also has our core. So this gauntlet
Our poise, right?
Arcor. I don't think it was Arpoise, but
okay.
I do get Arpoise at some point here also. And yeah, so now we go to the amulet, which is a Dex +8 reflect amulet, and an Arpoise will ring. And yeah, so this gauntlet has been pretty much amazing. Just fills out every resistance we need, and also gives us 7 slaying so far. And now I'm just standing there, figuring out my options, how I can deal with the Minotaur in case he does something bad. Yeah, this just takes a while for me to learn about everything I'm currently carrying, because at this point I really don't want to die, so I'm just familiarizing myself once again.
But yeah, I've been playing pretty quickly, so not a surprise.
Yeah, the recording might make this slightly might make this seem slightly faster than it actually was, because the settings that I use make the single turn be at a maximum of, I think, 200 milliseconds or maybe 500 milliseconds. So every key press is at a maximum of that delay. So in the real game, I took a bit more time than this.
Okay, yeah, thanks for clarifying.
Yeah.
Looks like you found a new axe.
Yeah, it was it's a pretty good one, I guess. It's a +5 war axe of Elec, and it also gives RC. So yeah, it was at the end of the loot pile from the gauntlet after killing the Minotaur. So it's at least something that I can use for a bit of melee, but it's not up to the standards of throwing weapons, pretty much. So yeah, at this point, I'm still wishing that Okawara can give me some axe, but it doesn't work out, and now I'm just thinking about whether I should just instantly go into Swamp. After some deliberation, I figured out that this is the 0.27 version where Snake and where Snake and Swamp are buffed, while Spider and Shoals are still not. So I thought whether getting one of the other 3 ones be good, and so I thought that Swamp is actually not such a bad idea at this point. So I just go in and try to deal with the enemies that are in Swamp.
Also, that ring from before, the slaying ring, it had both our poison, our corrode. I just checked.
That's good. Yeah, so it's a really great ring, and our boys, getting our boys in Swamp is extremely useful. Like both the confusing clouds and the poison clouds that are in here are just a killer to any character, especially for the Turncount ones. If you just end up standing in them, like the swamp drakes that can confuse you, and then you have to deal with several hydras standing next to you while you're confused. That is just a terrible place to be. So getting our boys really
and
feels...
you're doing are you doing slime or abyss as the third room?
So the idea was always to focus on abyss, because getting distortion weapon can save like 200 or 300 turns of abyss exploration, because you can just distort yourself back down to straight to the rune. so yeah, so the main goal is always to go for the abyss at this point. Now, Safer has been, after me taking this record, Safer has been showing that even slime is possible because it's all in one place. After seeing how well I can deal with them in this run, so yeah, so after this, the run actually goes into the slime rune instead of the second instead of the second layer branch, and the reason for that is that I didn't manage to find the second layer branch. I I looked around a bit in layer 3 and layer 4, and then went down into layer 5 and instantly found the Jiva altar, which signified the slime entrance vault. And so I then just went straight into slime.
You figured at best at that point you'd do slime, maybe find a distortion weapon, and then you'd do abyss as the third room.
Yes, that is the intended. Or of course, if that doesn't work, you just go down into depths and go into the abyss portal there. Portal. Because the abyss portal, even then, still is probably faster than going into the second layer branch. And yeah, now at this point we are in Swamp 4, and I managed to identify the end vault pretty quickly. So, and it's also one of the easier ones, so that is pretty nice. It is the square room which contains a bunch of hydras and swamp dragons. So compared to other possible end vaults, it was pretty lucky.
You can just emulate that vault, right? Or do you have one of those scrolls left?
I'm not sure at this point. I might have had it, but I just end up throwing boomerangs and javelins at the vault instead. Yeah, so we can see the vault is right next to the right, and also all the dragons and hydras coming at us also signify the same.
It's already leaking, so
yeah,
not much you can do about it.
So yeah, so at this point I'm pretty much just not swinging my weapon and just using the boomerangs with heroism and finesse, which I've already started throwing. I think I'm at 8 or 9 at this point of throwing, and with heroism it boosts it up to like 14. So adding that to the boomerang's base damage is pretty respectable.
Do you even bother training axes after a while?
Yeah, so how much did I train? I might have stopped. I think I stopped at 15 axes, but that ended up just due to the point that at the start of the game I just used to turn on axes and just turn off everything else and just autopilot it until I found some good loot, because well, you just want to kill enemies quickly.
Yeah, you don't get throwing in Okawaru immediately, so
yeah, so
you want to be strong for
after
that, yeah.
I think after I killed the first Hydra in lair, I was at pretty much 15 axes, and then I just turned off axes and started throwing. And yeah, now we can see that I managed to deal. So yeah, so the strategy with throwing is if there is a single monster, or if it's out of the way somehow, well, not on the path you're trying to take, boomerangs are the best option because you don't have to pick them up. If you see the monster on the way or multiple monsters that are lined up, javelins are better because you can double your damage by hitting both of them, because the damage doesn't go down at all. And yeah, now I just picked up the boomerangs that I managed to throw, and went in to pick up the rune.
So what turn count is this at now?
Yeah, so the turn count is just a bit lower than the time. So turn count, yeah, 3129 was the turn count? Huh, so it's the same at this point.
So that's the first room at 3000 turns then.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so the record at before this run, the 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 first run was taken at around 2.5k turns. So at 3000 turns, it was kind of slow, but Safer didn't use the throwing strats. He just used the Frostbite axe, which is a +8 executioner's axe of freezing. So at I thought also with the loot that I managed to get with +7 slaying and the crystal plate armor that my run would be at least competitive if I managed to complete it. So with 3000 turns it's still possible to beat because Safer also went into the ziggurat and
You feel like you probably won't need to go into the Zig, right?
yeah, I never I've never expected to go into a Zig and never even actually thought about it much. Because well, it would really waste time when you can just keep on diving and go straight into Zod. But it might not be a bad idea for getting teleportation or blink scrolls, which can be very useful, since blink scrolls work on in Zod after the 0.25 or 26 version.
I don't remember.
But yeah, so that's pretty nice. And now I'm just trying to figure out whether taking the upstairs trapdoor or going straight to the stairs would be a faster way, since now I'm actually trying to save as many turns as possible, where previously I was just autopiloting and just somewhat exploring fast. Now I'm really trying, looking at the map for any passive mapping that might uncover possible vaults or stairs or anything like that. And yeah, so I counted that walking out of swamp would take me around 60 turns. Yeah, so it wasn't worth taking the trapdoor, which might take me to the other part of the level, so it might take longer. Yeah. And yeah, so now I'm just so I'm pretty much after every few turns I will be just looking at the map in case the Deep Dwarf passive mapping managed to uncover any possible indications that there is an entrance vault to the second layer branch. And yeah, I'm just now guiding around enemies because it might save a few turns instead of fighting them. Just trying every possible way to save even one turn at this point.
Yeah, and only the fast enemies will hit you while you're moving anyway. In this version.
Yeah, that is one of the main reasons why I chose to run in the older versions, because I thought that 0.28 or trunk is just much less feasible to be able to get a good record, because for one reason the shields have been nerfed, so starting off, let's say a fighter, you end up with a shield that manages to even inconvenience you instead of helping you at the start. So it's just not worth it. Also, the spider branch is buffed in 0.28, and there might also be some other enemy changes. And also then in 0.29 or trunk, you also have the attacks of opportunity, which would be just terrible in this situation, let's say. So yeah, just the game has become slower in my opinion in the newer updates.
What's it called? The attack speed normalization, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, that is in this update. So I it was one of the reasons why I wanted to try to go to an even lower version, let's say 0.26, which has even fewer. I think it doesn't have snake buffed, so it has the easier snake layer branch, but but it also doesn't have auto identification of items when you step on them, which and also the curses have been removed in 0.27 version, so along with them was removed bad jewelry. So after trying out 0.26 for like 50 runs, I would end up with the cursed ring of attention or cursed ring of teleportation, and you also end up with like a cursed plate armor -3, and it just was kind of annoying. So yeah, I just
Did
thought
that version had was that before Makleb got nerfed? Or was
yes,
that
yes. Point 26 also has better Makleb and Ru. Ru gives more piety and I think more sacrifices more quickly, while Makleb has increased healing compared to the current version. So if I did want to try out those gods, I would need to go back one version back. But since I didn't want to mess around with, um, mess around with the curses and more identification, and also remove curse scrolls that also remove additional consumables that you may find. So just using Okawaru and throwing was the option I chose, and just did my runs on point 27 with one strategy that I try to go for all the time.
I'm not sure if that remove curse thing really affects it because I think they I mean it's I think they adjusted the item generation to compensate for that when remove curse scrolls got removed, because otherwise you would it would be a buff, right? You would get more useful items.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I understand that, but think about it like this: if you see an unidentified scroll, you would go towards it and pick it up. That costs turns, and if there are, you want every scroll to be useful that you pick up, and remove curses is just a waste of turns essentially. Yeah, you
Right.
also waste less time identifying items. And yeah, but now I stepped into an alarm trap based on advice from chat, from either Sergey or Safer, that the idea for that is that there might be I might pull in enemies from the lair branch vault, which can
Right. So
help
if you
me.
pull in spiders, for example, you'd know.
Yeah, and it also tells me the general direction that they came from. So, but it didn't work out in this case. And at this point, I actually thought that I was on layer 3, so I take another stair down that I find, and it manages to be a pretty good one, as I said previously, because it lets me identify, lets me see that Jiva altar instantly, which the chat also points out. So this run was actually a bit of collaborative, and it probably wouldn't have been able to even happen if people in chat didn't notice a few things for me, because I might have wasted more turns. And yeah, so we can see the altar on layer 5, which has an extremely high chance of being Jiva. And so after some thought about it, and encouragement from Sergey, I chose to go into slime as my second branch. Yeah, so I hoped there was a path up there, but there wasn't one. So I tried to go around for another possible path from the right side, so that I can conserve my digging wand charges, which I have only 4 of, and so I choose to dig like this, which actually manages to make me waste one charge because I could have done it in one. And yeah, now I use heroism and start fighting them. Chat points out that I didn't use finesse, so I use that as well. And I am currently just throwing boomerangs at the acid blobs even though they are in melee to me, because I know that it would do more damage. Because a boomerang has 6 damage maybe on base, but it also adds the unarmed combat damage to it. So with, let's say, 16 throwing, you get 20 22. Yeah, you get 22 base damage attacks, and using finesse, they are also at 0.3, so that is pretty good. That's
base
why
damage is multiplicative the increases, so more base damage is very good.
Yeah, and also there, I yeah. So at this point, they're at 14 slime creatures on the screen, going back down might actually be pretty bad, because after going back up you could be surrounded by almost titanic slimes. So I chose to fight them. Here, so to thin out the pack. With only 7 slime creatures, that is no problem at all. So we can continue going down. And slime is also quite nice for speedruns because it is intended to be a dive branch with stairs close to each other. So you really don't waste a lot of time going down to this level.
All the loot is just in one place, really.
Yeah, and there I see a Zotrap and an alarm trap, which I don't want to be near enemy possible, so I just exclude it. And the main battle with the royal jelly begins at this point. So yeah, I managed to pick up. I had, I think, 7 silver javelins, and going down into slime, Okawaru gave me I think a few more, so I might be at 11 or 13 now, not sure. Oh, 16 actually. So yeah, this is definitely enough to take down the royal jelly. The positioning is not perfect because it can keep spawning jellies in the whole inner chamber, but it still can work out because javelin spears through all of the enemies and damages them every time I throw.
I mean, the bigger problem is that the royal jelly starts escaping, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it could be bad, but it tends to go back in view, and also throwing silver javelins at it doesn't live for very long.
Yeah.
And yeah, now I'm just trying to target the acid blob specifically because they might corrode me, and that would reduce my damage output to all jellies in the coming turns. So while I could throw a javelin that might hit 3 slimes, I chose to throw at, let's say, 2 slimes and the acid blob, or just the acid blob alone. And yeah, so now at this point, I'm the main thing I'm hoping here to find is a branded weapon, which is a distortion one. It would be very nice if I could find one in the loot chamber, but luck doesn't pan out that way, and so I just pick up a few evocables and a few scrolls, and then go in search of a distortion weapon along the way, or if that doesn't work out, then the depths entrance, which is guaranteed in depths 4.
So do you remember what turn you're at now, approximately?
So it should be... I can quickly look that up, I guess, but it might also pop up. Yeah, let me quickly just look it up. Yeah, so I got the Slimy Rune Azot at 3.8k turns. Yeah, so that once again, it's not the fastest possible, but it was pretty good against Safer's Run. And now I chose to so I'm just going through all the different items, all the different weapons, I mean, standing on them, which is also another buff to let's say 0.27 compared to other versions, where you don't have to keep wield ID every item, so it would be pretty annoying to try to find the distortion weapon by in all other versions, because I would need to wield them or use an identification scroll, where I can just stand on them in this case. And yeah, so there I searched for the distortion or apportation, which both don't exist. Searching for apportation was just to appease Safer, who kept saying that I should have learned it, that because it saves turns. But in my opinion, at least at this point, is that going for spells reduces the amount of skill points you have for other skills. So it's a trap in some sort, because you might just end up dying instead.
Have you calculated how much you would need to cast that rotation relatively safely with a CPA?
Yeah, it would take quite a bit, so it probably you might even need to train up to 10 probably in the translocations. So it's not a very small investment, because yeah, otherwise you just keep failing it.
And I assume the other skill points would go to evocations otherwise.
Yeah, I also liked training fighting, and throwing, of course. Fighting, there is an idea that Deep Dwarf doesn't need a lot of fighting, because you can just heal at any point, and yeah, it's pretty much free. But the main deal is that using heal wounds instead of swinging a weapon is slow, and so you take more damage while healing, and you can go into a spiral that you would need to keep on healing and healing, where instead, if you had more HP, you can keep fighting, and after the fight is over, you can just heal up. So that's why I like to train more fighting.
Also get a little bit more damage, I suppose.
Yeah.
And might be a cheaper way to increase damage. Well, not with throwing, actually, since you get more base damage with throwing skill.
Yeah.
Yeah. You did put a skill target for 10 for evocations, so...
Yeah, but also evocations is +3, while translocation might be -1 for Deep Dwarf.
Yeah.
So that
and,
is...
yeah. You get a lot more use out of evocations, I guess, in general.
Yeah, I actually hadn't trained evocations at this point at all, because I didn't find any good items, while in Slime I found the Tin of Tremor Stones and Vein of Clouds, I think.
Yeah, the Condenser Vein.
Yeah. So, and I asked in chat whether I should even train invocation, because it might be a waste of skill points, but they assured me that it is one of the best skills for turn count in terms of saving turns. So yeah, so that's why I just instantly trained to train. And now, now another piece of advice was to find a shaft going, because yeah, so I had explored up to D11, and now I'm just trying to find a shaft that could lead me through past these unexplored levels, which could be very nice. And I managed.
And then you'd have to explore during the warp run instead. But
yeah, but you only need to go one way through the levels, so that definitely saves turns. And I managed to find it instantly after taking teleportation trap, so that was pretty nice. And what's even better, that this shaft turns out to be a 3-level deep one, so I go straight to D15.
Oh, is this where you picked up the obsidian axe?
Yes, it might have been. Yeah, and
I briefly saw it on the screen.
Yeah, so the obsidian axe, it is a strong axe, but specifically for Turncount, it just didn't feel like the thing to use, because, well, you might get stuck in view of an enemy that you want to walk away from, and you can't do that, so you are forced to fight it. I go up quickly so that I can do a bit more exploration, I guess. And also one more thing, I managed to pick up a helmet of See Invisible somewhere along the way, and I was debating whether I should have switched to it from the RC helmet due to the point that I had enough RC, but I didn't have See Invisible, and I chose to leave it up there, which in my opinion was not the best decision, dropping it there in the first place, but I needed some space to pick up another item. So because my inventory was full, so I just end up going forward without having See Invisibility. So it doesn't turn out to be very bad that I don't have See Invisibility, but it's just it would have been more comfortable having it.
Why did you place an exclusion on the stairs?
So that I remembered that there was a bunch of enemies. Yeah, so just in case I managed to forget. Yeah, and yeah, so I buy a potion of resistance and an unknown potion in that shop so that I get a free identification. That turns out to be a potion of cancellation, which I wish I would have used at an upcoming point in this run. Yeah, we'll get to
Now
that.
the plan is to go to Abyss, right?
Yeah. So, well, of course, we have 2 runes, and if we are in depth, close to Zot, so pretty much the only rune available to us is the Abyss one.
And I mean, if you get lucky, some of the Hell Knights will have distortion weapons or something like that.
Yeah, but I was still hoping at this point to get that, but yeah, it doesn't turn out well. Yeah, so yeah, now we can see some strategy with javelins where I aim to throw the javelins at the same point so that I waste little time in picking them all up because the enemies are bunched up and in line with each other, so I can then, after finishing fighting them, just use one turn since it's along the way especially.
Yeah, and there are lots of these corridors and depths, right?
Yeah, I managed to use the same strategy 3 or 4 more times here. So yeah, some pretty good stairs in depth so far. Well,
and this is the version where without the depths 5 removal, so it's still depths 5. That's the last level, right?
Yeah. I actually was a bit worried that this might be the grid after seeing this layout for just a bit, but my fears were quickly dispelled. And yeah, so we have a few more corridors with ugly things in them, but perfectly lined up for javelins. Silver ones, even better. Because they are chaotic beings, so they take a lot of damage. And yeah, now one more corridor for the same strategy. Yeah, so at this point we can quite plainly see the strength that throwing can give a character. Where if this was a melee character, you would have to melee every single one of those ugly things individually.
Well, I would say it was already apparent when you fought the Hydra in there, the first Hydra.
Oh, right? Yeah, I guess. Yeah,
Boomerangs... You only had 5 throwing, and you still managed to kill it. Granted, that was with a CPA, so you could stand in melee, but...
Yeah, if it wasn't a CPA, I guess I would have needed to use healing, maybe. And yeah, okay, I guess again, I can talk a bit about my exploration strategy in the situations where I don't manage to find stairs quickly. So what I came up and used a bit is essentially using a circle. Essentially doubling back after exploring for some way in still new ground. So you would go by quadrants. And it would lead you back straight close to the stairs in case you manage to find one, instead of going in the random direction and not stopping. So that is a useful... It let me find stairs or some other things quite quickly, when I might have instead explored the whole level. So just doubling back through still uncharted territory, but going closer once again to the stairs that you came to. And here I use a magic mapping scroll because this is depth 4 to find the abyss entrance and of course the stairs down to depth 5. And I managed to be pretty lucky once again with some stairs down in this room, and there's also the Lugano altar with the abyss entrance vault, which is pretty easy to recognize. So the god altars were nice landmarks in finding 2 of my branches that I need for runes. And yeah, now comes the part that can lose a lot of time, which is of course the abyss exploration without a distortion level. Now, right as I go in, I managed to find an entrance down instantly, which is very lucky and very nice. There are also 2 unidentified potions here, I think. At this point, I had 3 unidentified potions in my inventory, and I had 4 unidentified potions possible. So I wanted to have haste in case this was one. So I risked it and did a few extra steps to pick the potion up. In case the abyss might have ported me away in those few turns, was the risk, so that I would need to keep searching for the stairs down for a longer time. So essentially I turn based. And as it turns out, when I do find an identification scroll, the coppery potion that I picked up here in the abyss was indeed the haste potion that I was hoping for. Now knowing that the possible rarities, the only with having 5 unidentified potions, with the last one being much rarer than the rest being experience, it was pretty likely that I would have haste after picking up 4 unidentified ones. And yeah, now I found an abyss exit vault up there, which was pretty sad because I want an abyss entrance one. Well, one that goes down deeper into the abyss tree, so that I can finally have a chance, which does manage to appear right now. And now is just a point of finding the magical tile which indicates the abyss rune vault, which does actually manage to take some time. So at this point I am also I have 6 teleportation scrolls, and I am using one of them to speed up exploration so that I can find the abyss vault quicker.
At least getting down to abyss 3 was relatively quick.
Yeah, that was pretty nice.
So not finding a distortion weapon didn't cost you that much time, unless you were planning to use it in abyss as well to go down deeper.
Well, I actually, that is a strategy that others don't really seem to use, but from what I've tested in Wiz mode, using using the distortion weapon repeatedly, even if you get the big contamination, is still lets you explore the abyss much quicker than even by teleporting.
Or I mean, it's a question if you want to risk getting lots of mutes that you don't that you think would slow down the run.
Well, turns usually exploring would probably slow it down more than getting some mutes. With mutes you might just die, but at least you were fast in dying. Yeah, so there I use another teleportation scroll with only 4 left. I didn't want to use any more because they might be needed in Zot for trying to steal the orb. So at this point I just put on Sterke also advised me to put on the Blink RF ring, which I managed to also pick up in somewhere along the way. I think it's Slime. So having the evocable Blink with 10 invocations gave me a 3% chance to fail, maybe, which is a very nice ability to have, and it also allows me to have slightly faster exploration because it skips a few turns if you position yourself correctly.
It costs MP and not HP, right?
Yes, it costs just 1 MP. I thought it cost 2 at some point, but yeah, so as I was saying before the break, so it costs just 1 MP to use the Blink evocable, which is very cheap, very nice, and it turns out quite useful in a few locations while exploring. And you can also use the door blink strat, where you close the door behind you so that you can only blink forwards. That in, let's say, the orb run. And yeah, so at this point I've been exploring in Abyss 3 for maybe 200 to 50 turns. So yeah, so it's starting to feel like a bit of a waste of time. But I also managed to see the rune tile next to this entrance vault, and I managed to use the spatial maelstrom, which can destroy even stone walls, to open the end chamber of this vault to save even more turns. Now the main strategy is to quickly kill these enemies and grab the rune as fast as possible so that you don't get teleported away. This whole time I was desperately hoping that I wouldn't, because it would be a big blow in terms of turn cost. And yeah, so I managed to pick the rune up, and now I'm feeling pretty nice. So now Sergey advised me to simply fight to get the entrance out, which is a good strategy, of course, since I've already fought quite a bit, and the XP timer might be close. There we can also see a lurking horror, which I had a paralyzed wand to use to deal with them, since I didn't want to lose a lot of HP. You can just paralyze them and walk away. And they're throwing a few javelins at the Chaos Crab and a few abominations, managed to generate an entrance out, and so I left the few javelins on the ground away and just exited the abyss myself in case I get teleported out to another region. So all in all, the abyss took around 500 turns, which is not bad, not great, but it could have been a lot worse, of course. Now all that's left is to get into Zot and start the endgame. But before that, I'm just now trying to once again slowly explore and see if the Deep Dwarf passive mapping might have revealed the possible Zot entrance vault on the ground somewhere. But what happens while I'm going in this corridor is that I managed to get marked somewhere around this point. Yeah, and as I've said, I had 3 potions of cancellation identified, and the best strategy that I could use it is to just drink one, but I managed to forget the possibility of clearing that.
I thought that was actually intended at first when I saw that you were fighting all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah, so I think maybe at this point or a few turns later from now, someone in chat told me that I could have drank cancellation, and I was slightly disappointed that I forgot about that, because, well, reviewing this, it didn't take that much time. Well, from entering Depths 5 to entering Zot, it took me 200 turns in total.
Yeah, it was 200 turns, right?
And so I count that, let's say, the mark might have cost me 100 turns, but it was an extra 100 turns I could have saved by simply drinking a cancellation potion. And I started this fight at 13 maximum mana, so we can see how much I have at the end of the fight. It is quite a dramatic change. So yeah, so at this point I'm just trying to move away from the walls in case the Earth Shamans might be casting LRD on me, and I'm trying to throw javelins where possible. Now that enemies approached me, I was feeling a bit scared, so I used one of my 2 summoning scrolls to draw some attention away from me, and so that I could keep fighting. They instantly got feared by the glowing orange brain, so I chose to take it out as the first target. And now I'm just standing next to a few enemies at this time with 43 AC and 23 shield. They don't seem to be doing that much damage to me, so I can keep fighting them. And now we are definitely confirmed that this is the Zot entrance vault, as the Draconians have started to come out of there. It was actually confirmed a bit earlier by seeing the Zot entrance vault specific floor tile, but that is easy to miss, while this definitely confirms it. And yeah, so now I'm just thinking about what possible moves I can make that reduces the amount of damage I take. Yeah, so I'm thinking that I could maybe dig diagonally down to the right, so that I could maybe go there, but the deep troller of shamans could just dig out the walls around me. And also we have the storm dragon, which is one of the more dangerous enemies, as it has the lightning breath, which is the only resistance that I don't have covered at this point. And also having harm and a double zap possibly hitting me could almost instantly end my run. So that is one quite scary possibility. Yeah, so at this point, the summons that I had just quickly got killed, and I'm just thinking what else I could do. So one idea was that I could simply read a teleportation scroll and reset this fight, because at this point I was around 500 turns ahead of Safer's run. So even though it would cost me, it would still be a new record. But there was also the second option of using the Blink evocable, which I chose to use instead, because even if it put me in a bad position, I could still use the teleport scroll, and yeah, it would cost me essentially one turn and maybe some HP. But yeah, so now I managed to once again put some distance between me and the enemies, and that I can keep ranging them down. I also chose to go back up here to as a sort of tunnel, kill hole. Yeah, as a sort of kill hole. But because I thought I had killed both of the deep earth shamans, but it turns out one of them was still alive, and managed to dig a second hole right there. But it didn't turn out to matter much, because I managed to kill everyone here. And also, one more annoying thing is that there was a necromancer at some point, which I thought I killed instantly the moment it showed up on the screen, so there shouldn't have been any time for him to bind the souls so that they would be spawning these simulacra, but somehow they still were spawned, so it cost maybe a few extra turns to kill the simulacra as well. Now we finally have dealt with pretty much all of the enemies. Now
and the mark is over as well.
Yeah, that's the main deal. So we can finally, after clearing out the remainder, we can progress into Zot. Yeah, so at this point, so since I had the level up, I got some additional max mana, so I went from 12 to 13. But these high amounts of mana will not last, as I have to actually start healing, and I get pretty unlucky.
This happens right before Zot too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the Zot entrance is literally a few turns away. So yeah, so we saw that I had 13 mana
just from 3 consecutive heals.
Yeah. Yeah, so now in this fight, I think I ended the fight with like 2 javelins in total in my inventory, so I threw almost everything I had at these monsters. And yeah, now I'm just
2 silver, or what?
Both types. I think I had 2 javelins in total. And yeah, so now we can finally enter Zot, and we get instantly hit for a third of our HP by a single dispelling breath, and then we face the Black Draconian, which can use the electric breath. So yeah, so it wasn't a great start. Now I'm down to 9 mana. Here we have
also worth noting that I think your total XP that you got, you went from 90% or something at XL16, and then you ended up at around 50 now at XL17. So it might seem like a lot of XP, but you get the equivalent of that pretty quickly in Zot, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, especially in Zod 5 where everything has extremely high amounts of XP. And now I'm just quickly checking the logs to see how many max mana I lost, because now I'm down to 8 maximum mana. Turns out I don't have the DRC option that logs the effort expended that you lose mana, but yeah, I managed to lose from 13. Then I went back down to 12, then back up to 13, and now I'm down to 8. So I lost like 6 maximum mana in around 200 or 250 turns. So yeah, that was so. And at this point, I'm now thinking, okay, so I think I'll need to use my healing potions and stuff so that I can actually conserve my mana. And somewhere at this point, I also decide that since I'm down to 7 mana soon from this fight, I will need to just start focusing on gaining max mana once again. So I instead of training spellcasting and some I do, since invocations is at +3 for the dwarves, I chose to just keep focusing on that instead, and it turned out pretty well, I guess, because I managed to regain a lot of my max mana.
You hadn't trained any spellcasting before this either, right? So it would take quite a while anyway.
Well, it takes half as much as you have trained on the other stats, so I think I had like 10 invocations, so it would take... would it take 5 spellcasting and then you get maximum mana?
Yeah, also consider that the app difference is...
Yeah, that was
large.
That was the main deal, because spellcasting is -1 while invocation is +3. So
oh, it's -1. I thought it was -2. Never mind.
And yeah, so yeah, now we have another pack of draconians, and the death cob, which I was quite afraid that would actually manage to hit me and slow me down, but I was pretty lucky because I managed to block it or something, and so it didn't get slowed there. But I think at this point...
no, it is -2.
Oh, okay. So, but that's not a big difference between those. It's still the way I calculated it is that it's a 4 difference, so it's double, twice as good in XP gain. And yeah, so yeah, and at this point, I think I'm fighting like 2 or 2.5 draconian packs. Just they come both from the right, and one pack from down. I mean, yeah, so it's just an extremely long fight where I take quite a bit of damage, and now we can see that I'm down to 7 maximum mana. So having 7 mana is a pretty precarious situation, because you would like to have at least 7 to be able to use heroism and finesse one after the other with Akawaru. Yeah, so now I'm just thinking what can I do? So, and I choose to train invocations. Yeah, so I think this might be the 3rd draconian pack that I end up fighting. And then they came from the right once again. Yeah, and I also I was actually running low on boomerangs at this point, so I wanted to conserve them, but I'm down to a single one, and I actually managed to run out of any throwable items at this point. After seeing those additional enemies, I had to go back down to pick up the javelins that I threw previously so that I could continue throwing something at all these draconians. And yeah, now I'm just trying some clever positioning so that they would line up for me.
Yeah, you can see that he got about as much XP as he just from this floor alone as he did from that Depths 5 debacle.
Yeah. So yeah, so drinking a cancellation point showed there would definitely have been a nice thing to do, which I sadly missed. And yeah, so now I have the rest of my javelins picked up, so it's not a bad amount, but just javelins can cost you turns because you don't want to waste time picking them up. So I really would like some boomerangs, of which I only have one currently. Yeah, so I chose to use another stair there.
Because it was hard to explore new tiles per move.
Yeah, but then I see this alarm trap, which I want nothing to do with it at this point, even though it's extremely hard to trigger it by going through the stairs. I just chose to go back the other stairs anyway. Yeah, and it turns out to be not a bad decision because there are stairs down just right up here. Yeah. So there was a singular enemy there, and usually I would just throw my boomerangs at him, but I had a single boomerang and I wanted to save him, so I guess I chose to waste turns instead. Now we are faced once again with enemies that I'm not resistant to. That is Storm Dragon, Electric Breath. So I'm once again dreading the loss of possible maximum mana points.
What are those walls supposed to be?
Yeah, those are light blue walls, which are the default for Zot 3. But it just turns out that light blue walls in the rest of the game symbolize grades. So that's just how DCSS replay displays it currently. Yeah, it would essentially need another special case to handle this as regular Zot walls in Zot. Yeah, so you can see in the bottom right that they're shown as light blue hashtag marks.
Right.
Yeah.
And you decided to not go. You found some boomerangs now, but only because you went right.
Yeah. So this is the fabled path of the boomerang. Let's say where you go back to one way and then circle back to the another. Yeah. Just pick up some boomerangs. I of course didn't know that they were there and was pretty happy that I found them, even though it technically could have cost me some turns.
Yeah. I think you were considering using the digging wand there as well. At some point.
Yes, because essentially what I can see here with these triple doors, and there are also triple doors at the bottom of the level, is that this is some kind of an insanely big vault, which I wanted nothing to do with. So I would have either if I wanted to save some turns, I would just try to dig down and continue exploring from the first direction I went with. That is right, but I chose to not to save my charges for the orb run or something like that, or maybe digging a kill hole somewhere in Zot, and just continue exploring manually. Yeah, there is a ghost moth there, so I'm just throwing my boomerangs at nothing, where this is one of the locations where I would have liked to have seen visibility. And there I managed to find another stack of boomerangs, so now I'm very happy with my throwable situation. Ready to face anything Zot 5 has to throw at me. Or even better if it didn't throw anything at me and just gave me the armor.
Yeah. No puns intended.
Yeah, that as well.
These Stormcallers do a lot of damage.
Yep. So the enemies that do a lot of damage, they are black draconians, purple draconians, stormcallers, yeah, and also possibly shifters, because they might pull many draconians onto you. And yeah, so yeah, the purple draconian's breath is undodgeable. No, okay, it's unblockable, but it's pretty much undodgeable. You need to have like 35 plus evasion to dodge it somewhat reliably. The electric breath is also quite bad for me because I don't have Arelec, and I also don't have a lot of mana. So yeah, I had up to 9 mana I think at one point, and now I'm just pumping as much invocations as possible so that I can continue using my god abilities. And there I managed to find a way down into Zot 5, which is not the very recommended way, but as it is a speedrun, I just I am also encouraged a bit by people in chat, and I also want to pick up the orb very fast. Uh, I wish at this point I really wished I had even a single blink scroll through the whole game, but as I don't have any, we saw the only blink scroll I managed to use in the dungeon 7 or something like that, and so I just try to buff up as much as possible and hope that I land somewhere near uh, the uh, the Orb of Zod, that I can just somehow walk in there and pick it up. But
Also, you took off your Scarf of Harm here.
Yeah, so of course I was expecting to go straight in the chamber and be surrounded by like 4 orbs of fire and 2 ancient liches or something like that. But so I chose to take it off so that I had some additional HP that I can use to just so that I can just walk in and teleport out later. But as it turns out, the luck was maybe not on my side. Well, at least in helping me steal the orb, but I guess I managed to land at least in somewhat of a calm location and close-ish to the Orb of Zod. So now the only option, pretty much, was left is to fight the rest of the way, because reading a teleport scroll is more likely to waste time than gain here at this point.
You also had 3 of them left at this point, I think.
Yeah, because I had 4 after the abyss, and now I just read another one. Now I also...
No, wait, you had 5 in around somewhere in Zop because you picked up 1. So you should have 4 now, actually. Never mind.
Okay.
I think. I'm not sure. But you had either 4 or 3 of them left, so...
Yeah, I think you're right. I should have 4 at this point, because after I read 1 to escape, I had 3. And yeah, so there is the second point where I would have liked to have seen invisibility when the Lich turned invisible, but it also didn't turn out to matter much. And yeah, now I also, since I had the extra time, I put the Scarf of Harm back on to once again help me in fighting, because getting 30 extra damage, 30% extra damage is pretty nice. And so far the enemies that are appearing here are not terrible, so I'm just walking back, fighting them. I also have these 2 teleportation traps to help me clear an enemy out that might do something bad to me. And yeah, so there we can say the Black Draconian was taken care of temporarily, but it might have turned out that he was just teleported right back down into this chamber, because I can counter another Black Draconian instantly. And yeah, now just Okavaru is giving me extreme amounts of ammunition, because every enemy I'm fighting is much higher HD than me, so every battle is very great for him. And I also have the first Orb of Fire, which turns out to be the only one, but throwing silver javelins at it when it is chaotic with heroism and finesse takes like 4 throws and it is down. So it is actually one of the easier enemies if I can just face it alone, compared to killer clowns or liches.
Yeah, and 26 strength isn't bad either, so you do get quite a bit of damage from that too.
Yeah, that was pretty nice. Getting some +6 strength rings, and then getting a +6 strength ring that also had RF and RC on it, so it was a straight upgrade. And now it turns out that the upper chamber was upper right chamber was pretty clear, and lower right chamber had just a few mobs compared to regular. It felt pretty empty to me, and now we can actually see the orb pretty quickly without too much trouble. Now, of course, there might be some terrible traps like the dispersal ones in the orb chamber, but in this case it turns out that it doesn't happen, so it's pretty nice. And there we have the Orb of Zod and a teleportation trap to go with it, so that our escape can be quick and painless, possibly.
So far, no dispersal traps.
yeah, that was pretty nice. And yeah, so at this point I don't want to fight anything from the left chamber, so I just think about what I can do to quickly escape, and of course the main strategy is to read the teleportation scroll and go into the trap.
Yeah, and I assume you won't pick up your javelins either, because you're probably not gonna need them
Yeah, I
anymore.
also got some additional ones while fighting the mobs, so I chose to leave them here. So yeah, so now I think I picked up the orb. Yeah, I'm just thinking about whether I should pick up the javelins, and I choose not to. And now I pick up the orb and read the teleportation scroll and go into the teleportation trap. And now is a very interesting situation where I am surrounded, and I choose whether I should blink or read the fear scroll so that I can step next to the teleport trap and then into the teleport trap. So I choose to read the fear scroll because I can use the blink evocation even if it fails, and so I then step one forward step, and what actually happens there is that the purple draconian manages to dispel me in that one turn, and then I step into the teleport trap anyway, which actually manages to take me to the second teleport trap in the same chamber, and then after a force more, I managed to teleport out right next to the stairs. So this was an extremely interesting situation, to say the least.
Yeah, you were on that screen when you were playing. It's not shown in the replay because of the delay that you mentioned, but you were on that screen where you were on the force more on that second teleport trap for at least a minute or something, trying to figure out what happened.
Yeah, it was really just an interesting situation. And what I actually thought happened is that I stepped onto the teleport trap, and the teleportation effect from the teleport scroll kicked in, and so that I was teleported out. But it would cause the same force more. But what I didn't count on is that actually landing in the minuscule chance possible, landing on a second teleport trap from the first one, and then getting teleported out. Whew, that was just really something else. Yeah, that was the highlight and high roll of this run, really. And yeah, so now, having survived that situation, I am just walking out of the orb, trying to avoid and fighting enemies because it just costs turns.
There was also a moment earlier where you closed the door with a curse toe, and you used your blink to get past it.
Yeah,
Like your
so
blink ability.
yeah, so actually, what was happening is that in chat, Safer I think Safer, yeah, was telling me to use the door blinks, so that I would have faster exploration, and it was when he said it was next to I was close-ish to a door and close to the. Well, okay, let's skip that. And so now there is one more situation here where I have an Panlord and some additional orb spawns, and the Panlord is very fast, so he might even catch up to me in this time. And so this is one of the slightly possibly dangerous situations. So I'm thinking what I should do, and so the idea is to use the second summoning scroll that I have been saving for this whole time, to try to slow down enough so that I can go back upstairs. Which the stairs, after looking at the map, turn out that they are in any situation faster than even going back to the first stairs we took in to go down to depths 5, because we can just use the digging wand here to save. Yeah, this is the last charge, and I guess it was pretty well used.
Yeah, because you were considering using it in Zop before, and then it turned out to be better to save it, as we can see.
Yeah, and okay, so what I was talking about is that the door strats, door blink strats, I actually misunderstood what Saver was saying, that he didn't want me to use the Darbling stats specifically on the curse though, because I actually would have had to go back one turn into the direction I came to close the door and then blink, but it turned out to place me in such a direction that I didn't end up wasting any turns. It was just as if I would have walked there. Yeah, so and it also told me that I would need to use the Darbling strats anyway. So that's pretty good, I guess. Yeah, now we have some kiting with the 630. He acts as a bat, a slightly stronger one. Now I just fight a few mobs here so that they wouldn't follow me up, but there is also the Spriganeer mage which has the electric, once again the electric attack, so I choose to go up before it comes close to me. And yeah, so at this point, yeah, just trying to find the fastest possible ways to go back up. And we also saw that at one point I had maybe even 12 maximum mana. Now I'm down to 10. But of course, training invocations did manage to help out, because I would have had much less if I didn't do it and chose to train under the skill instead.
Something I'm noticing now, you decide... There is one moment later where you do it, but you don't use any teleportation scrolls during the orb run to potentially save time. Because all the stairs seem to be relatively close.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, this was one thing that I and other people noticed, that my stairs in this run were very nice throughout the whole dungeon.
Also there, for example, you could have closed the door and used Blink to save turns, I think, on average.
Yes, and it is one more mark of my immaturity in turn-count speedrunning, I guess, because I just forgot about these things. I just at this point I was also pretty tired, because I played this in 2 sessions essentially over one day. First was an hour to get to the first rune in Swamp, and then the second was 3 hours of the whole rest of the playthrough. So yeah, so I was just kind of tired at this point.
Yeah, and of course you were excited, right?
I mean, definitely.
You're about to beat the world record.
Yeah, it was a pretty good run. I managed to be 500 turns ahead and a bit more. Yeah, so the lead just increased bit by bit due to me using the throwing strat instead of Safer's Executioner's Axe. Yeah, so here we have, I think, one more slightly funny moment. The Arolka that gave me so much trouble, I just take down with a single boomerang. And continue along my way. There we have some additional boomerangs, but as much as I like them, I don't need any more, so I just choose to skip them.
No time for Path of the Boomerangs.
Yeah,
that strategy.
And also there was a slightly infuriating moment for some, is that I used auto travel to go from D8 to D5. Yeah, so I think I just looked at the map and saw that the stairs were really close together and just chose to use it, because I thought it would not cost me any turns. And
yeah. I'm not sure. I don't know if you know exactly how it works, but I think it's a greedy algorithm, right? It just tries to take the closest stair for each floor that it's on, and not consider more than just one stair at a time, but one floor at a time. I mean,
yeah, it's probably like that, because there would be some situations where it would ask you to go back down, and that of course doesn't happen anywhere except in Orc, so it's
right.
Probably
and
like
here's
that.
the moment when you use teleportation, because it does indeed save turn on average.
Yeah, because this was actually the level with the farthest stairs from the entrance out of all of them, I think. So yeah, I had the choice of going either one or the other stair, and I just chose the farther one, and yeah, that's pretty much the run. After a pretty nice teleport, I managed to go into the entrance with a Hell Sentinel next to me, and so I managed to beat the record with a new world record of 6,529 turns, which was, I think, a 600 turn cut to the record, or slightly more.
Yeah, So congrats on the new record, Sente. And hopefully it will last for a while at least.
Oh no, that it doesn't seem to be the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, as we're talking, Safer has an insanely high speed record. Uh, he actually has 3 runes at 2,700 turns, which he managed to get by first going to a lair branch, then slime, and then finding a distortion weapon, which I didn't manage to. And
Well,
he
we don't know if he does actually beat the record until he's done with the run. But yeah, it's looking pretty good for him.
Yeah, it's
To say the least.
possible to that this is even a sub 5,000 turn run if everything turns out correctly for him. Which I of course hope he does, because then the record will have been optimized quite well due to my involvement with first beating it and then getting beaten.
Well, that remains to be seen. All right, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thanks for joining me as well, because this was a fun talk, and let's hope the watchers will enjoy this.
Right. Bye.
Bye.